Hello and welcome to the second episode of What's Up With Me, a show that shares what's up with me. Me being Connor Kvietjen. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Connor_Kvietjen, and I will spare you the spelling of that last name. You can just kind of search in the description of the show. Yeah. What are we going to be talking about this week? What has been up with me? It's actually a good time to reflect and ask myself that question, because sometimes it feels like life is happening too fast and I don't actually check in with myself. So yeah, this episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what's been so special about Curbside Comedy. Last episode I talked about what is Curbside Comedy. This week, this time, why is it special? Why is it something that I'm continuing to do? Why didn't I choose to go back to New York City to continue to pursue stand-up comedy there? Which New York City is doing great in terms of stand-up comedy right now. I'm really proud of that city and the people I know there who are doing what they're doing. But yeah, that's going to be a little bit about what this episode is all about. But before that, upcoming show dates. That's where I like to start. And it's always good when there are show dates on the horizon. There are 3 that are coming up all next weekend. The first one is at Whim Brewing, which is actually just Whim. I put the brewing in there because that way people know to get drinks there. It's a place where you buy drinks and buy food, and not just a place we're showing up to on a whim. And this Whim show is with Curbside Comedy, as all these shows will be. Curbside Comedy I've been doing with Trevor Glassman. It's a 2-act show, 2 acts of stand-up, and a Q&A at the end of it, which is becoming rapidly a crowd favorite, another comedy act within itself. That show at Whim is at 7 p.m. and it is in just Hampton, New Hampshire. And it's a first come, first served type of system. No tickets necessary, none of that other stuff. That is the first show. The second one is in Newport, Rhode Island. It's at Newport Craft. It used to be Newport Storm Brewery. Now it's just Newport Craft Brewing and Distilling Company. That is a big date because it's the first time Curbside Comedy is selling tickets, which is exciting. It's a new adventure for me, especially as my interest in booking in that world continue to grow. Tickets are available for $20 for an individual, $15 for groups of 4 or more. You can get your tickets on Eventbrite. The show starts at 7:30. I recommend people get there at 7 p.m. So that way we can start the show right on time. And you do need to check in inside the restaurant per guidelines. Guidelines are still super important. Everyone should be doing their part. And Curbside Comedy, myself as a comedian, are happy to do ours to make sure that everyone is safe and be able to focus on the laughter. The last show, because I said there were 3, is happening at Apollo Vineyards. I believe it's a 2-show event, but we're still in the final details of putting that all together. And once that's out, hopefully when this podcast comes out with my email list, that information will be there. If that's a show that you can get to, it's in Derry, New Hampshire, times TBD. Yeah, shows. Great. It's always great news when shows are on the horizon. Yeah. What's next? Questions. Questions. Love to start the show with questions after that self-advertisement. Yeah, questions. No questions this week. None. It's on me. I still haven't been promoting this podcast just because show promotion with Curbside Comedy has really taken the forefront. Like I said, we've been selling tickets for our shows, and that's promotion within itself. So you got to pick and choose your battles. But this next podcast, when it comes out in 2 weeks, it comes out every other Monday. I'm going to put stuff on Instagram. I'm going to have my website ready to go to accept questions. So check that out. It's connorkvietjen.com. Ask me whatever you want, because I feel like, whether you're a new comedian, someone who's interested in comedy, just trying to figure out how to find a path forward during COVID, I can be a resource. And I think it could be fun to interact with people. So, no questions this week. Other than that, what is up with me? Jeez. A lot. a lot has been up. Shows are taking the forefront. Been working a lot on bookkeeping, running numbers, because for me, I'd like to be able to take curbside comedy and just make it a stable part of my career, which is really wild because this November I'll be 2 years into comedy. And for people who are in comedy, they know that it's not a long period of time. So the fact that I'm interested in being able to take a way to perform and turn it into a career this early is, I don't know. I feel very special doing it. And I think it's very special to do. But yeah, yeah. I've been running the numbers to see what it looks like. What do I need to do to actually get things in place? Because I do feel like I said, curbside comedy is something special. I mean, I talked about it a little bit last week, but curbside comedy simply started as a way to continue to perform. As a comedian, the goal with comedy is to be better the next time you go up. You're only as good as your next act, is the way I feel as a young comedian. Obviously, there are people who are very entrenched, who have been doing comedy for a long time, who are legends, and their legendary status will be upheld as comedians, and that speaks for themselves. But in terms of people not at that legendary level, you're really just trying to kill the next show. And it's very interesting, too. Comedy's the only time where you go up on stage and go, yeah, man, I really wanted to kill him, but I couldn't. And that's a bad thing. No other time really do you want to kill and you don't end up killing and you're upset. Yeah. So that's the way it started, just as a way to continue to perform for myself and Trevor Glassman, who I've been doing curbside comedy with. But the last few weeks, I've been noticing it's a lot more than that. Trevor and I just surpassed raising $4,500 for charity. We're hoping at Newport Craft through our ticket sales to surpass $5,000 raised for charity. If we don't do that with the private bookings that come before, which is wild. This thing started on my mom and dad's porch, and Trevor and I had talked a little bit about, accepting money and all of that. But our first show we didn't because we were rusty. We literally asked neighbors to come, kept our numbers very strict within guidelines, and just knocked off that rust. And as we're getting off stage, someone went, "Where's the tip jar?" We're like, no. Well, you can come to another one later. You don't need to for this one. And but from that moment, we realized, people want to give. They want to support artists, which is a whole different thing to talk about, people supporting artists. But the fact that we were able to take the simple idea of just continuing to perform and now raise $4,500 for charity, it showed to me that this thing has a place to grow. And the nice part is, I think other people are seeing that too. Bookings have increased in pace. They're coming faster. And WPRI in Rhode Island, actually, this past weekend, if you're listening to the podcast the day it came out, or let's see, what's today? Today's the 18th. Yes, today is the 18th, Friday the 18th, when I'm recording this. And tonight, WPRI will be putting a 2-minute story on air that features curbside comedy, highlighting the show we've been doing and how we've been raising money for charity. And Johnny Villela, who came to film us, great person, great journalist, called me last minute to make sure that all the details were correct, which is what you should be doing as a good journalist. He just loved the idea of it and loved the fact we were raising money for charity. And I feel like, again, touched upon it last week, but the issue is that people don't know it's a thing that they can do. And what is curbside comedy? Trevor and I worked a lot about this. We talked about it last week, but we really hammered home our message. I got my phone here. I got it pulled up, but here's just the quick blurb. Karnik Fietchin and Trevor Glassman are two New York City stand-up comedians who left the Big Apple when COVID-19 began. The duo started Curbside Comedy as a means to continue performing during the pandemic safely. They were the first comedians in the country to perform during the lockdown. We assume May 8th was the day we actually started. We don't know if that's officially true. And started a new way to bring comedy to the people. Curbside Comedy is a simple idea. Whether it's your event, business, or backyard, our comedy show is brought directly to you. We bring the equipment, we bring the jokes, and you bring the laughs from your desired location. That's it. From your desired location. You choose, we show up. Very simple. Very simple, but people don't think about it. I went a lot into that last week, so I don't need to belabor the point, but it's what I actually want to highlight is how much Curbside Comedy has been a positive thing in my life. I was in New York City before this, as the text read. And I think I would have seen my family at holidays, a weekend, long weekend, maybe a week most, between when I left and Christmas, New Year's, probably like max 3 weeks total combined time. I mean, that's a fair estimate. It's, get on a bus to go up 5 hours one way, not sleeping in your own bed. But because of COVID, I spent 4 months living with my parents. That was the goal at 24. That was the goal. No, it was great. In part because I assume from my parents' point of view, and my parents have been incredibly supportive through this. They're like, well, he's moving to New York. He has a skill set and he'll find his way. And comedy's something that he's doing as well. But now coming back, getting to do that in front of them, I get to show how much work I'm putting into this. And for me, I know with myself that my parents' approval is a big thing in my life. It just is. I think it's because I'm the youngest of 4. My parents have been very supportive and they steer me in the right direction. So if they're telling me I'm headed in the wrong direction, then, they'll speak up. Yeah. So I got to spend, in addition to like showing how much work goes into comedy to people that weren't really into it before, I got to spend the time with my parents. That's invaluable. Like that is, I feel like when I look back in my life, that's going to be something that's going to stand out, that I had that time. So I'm very thankful. And especially now that I'm not living with my parents anymore, I do go home from time to time when I have shows in the area. I just get reminded of how thankful I am for having people who are so supportive. So yeah, I mean, I also got to see my sister and brother-in-law and their 2 kids. And again, I would have seen them every once in a while. And they're young. Kids grow fast and they're young. If you don't see them for 6 months, you're like, you are a new person. So Curbside Comedy in terms of familial connections has been great. Just really great. But the other thing is, it's been great for meeting new people and having my faith in new people restored. We're taught very young, stranger danger. Stranger danger. Don't show up in someone's backyard, especially if you have equipment, and speak loud. That's not a thing to do. But that's what Curbside Comedy does. It is. And there have been an increasing number of times where we don't know that well the people whose yards we're going to. They've heard about us through different connections. So, still feeling safe, still feeling comfortable. Obviously, we talked to the people before, so they know what the show's about and we get a chance to meet them. But I mean, imagine showing up in someone's backyard that you don't really know and having them embrace you and what you do as a person. Sometimes they have extra food. Sometimes they have cold beverages and they want us to have them. Like, and they want to hear our story. They want to see what we do as professionals. Like, that's just, I mean, it's just not the narrative you hear anymore. But that's a narrative that's happening now in my life because of Curbside Comedy. And the people that I've met in their backyards, just, I don't know, some of the nicest people, and I would have never met them otherwise. And it's kind of reshaping the way that I imagine strangers, meeting new people. I'm like, oh, you know what? There's a good person here. That's where I'm gonna be. That's where my baseline is set, and it's the way it should be. But there's a lot of narratives out there that aren't like that, and I'm sure I'll run into narratives in my own life like that. But Curbside Comedy is not that narrative, and I feel incredibly grateful for those opportunities. And wherever my comedy career goes, because obviously I don't want to be in backyards for the next 20 plus years. I'd happily do it if, it works out that way, but want to grow and look at different venues, perform there too. But it's a really great foundation. And it's also, one other thing that it's reminded me is that comedy is still super niche. Like music is fairly universal. You say the Beatles, people are like, yeah, I know the Beatles. Even if they don't listen to the Beatles, they're not huge fans, they know the Beatles. But I meet a lot of people, I'm like, oh, they go, who do you enjoy as a comedian? And I, say John Mulaney, Jim Gaffigan, Jerry Seinfeld, just people in general. They're like, oh, yeah, I know of Seinfeld, the show. I'm like, that's all you know? I feel like because I'm engrossed in comedy so much that I forget that it's still like a small subsection of performance arts. I don't know what it's a comparison to. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are very into dance or other things like that, but compared to a concert selling out 50,000 people, comedy show with that many people, super rare. So yeah, it's a reminder that, not everyone is really into comedy, but I like to think the idea of Curbside Comedy is also getting comedy to the people who may not have been that interested before. Like they may see a comedy show for the very first time in a place that they feel comfortable and they go, that was pretty fun. Maybe next time I'm in, name a city, Boston, New York, Manchester, New Hampshire, where there are comedy clubs. I'll go check out a show. That seems like a fun alternative. So that's what I like to think in the back of my head. There's no way to track that to see if we're spreading a positive word about comedy, but I think that's interesting. Interesting to think about. I'm already looking at the clock. I've run over my time. I said 15 minutes, and I hate talking about myself, and that's why I rambled up front just that little bit, because it's hard to get momentum going and open up and talk about just me, not a thing I do. But yeah, what I want to talk about usually in these shows too, what I'm writing about, who I'm listening to. I said last time I listened to Dimitri Martin. I actually straight listened to all of his albums over a 2-hour car ride. And he's killer. He's just next level. Great with the one-liners. Check him out. I want to listen to more of Eddie Murphy's stand-up. I haven't listened to a ton of it before. I mean, obviously I've seen a lot of clips, but I haven't gone in and just listened to his album. So that's who's next on the horizon. What I'm writing about, I'm going through and trying to strengthen. Big shows coming up means I want to do my best, and it's very unlikely that the best thing that I'm going to write is something new. So I'm actually trying to go back and work on pacing. And I've realized that some shows that have gone really well, I'm not overthinking it. I'm not trying to say, look at this joke. This is the joke. Like, I'm not trying to tip the audience off that this thing is coming. Not playing it heavy-handed. I'm just trying to be in the moment, trust that what I've written is funny. And so taking a step back, working on that delivery, and then also, if I have a good show, don't try and recreate the exact same show. Try and recreate the feel that I had in myself, the confidence that I had in myself, the delivery, but not recreate the laughter, because everything's going to be different. Different audiences give you different things, and I want to be able to take not the same show and make a carbon copy of it, but take the same version of me in rhythm with the audience and bring it to the next thing. So not the same, but the same awareness. That's so important. So that's the thing I'm really been working on. Still want to write more and more about family. That's the new thing I'm really developing. I got about a 3-minute bit or so on that. That's I've been doing, but he wouldn't say it's in the A list yet. Yeah, that's it. That is it. Check out my social media. Check out what's up with you. Check in with yourself. Check out the Street story from WPRI that's coming out today. It'll be out by the time this podcast is out. I'll probably put it in my email list. And if you're listening to this podcast without going through my email list, head to my website, connorcafietchain.com. Sign up for that. It's a great way to see about upcoming events, what else is going on, hear more about Curbside Comedy and what I'm up to. Any other calls to action? Oh yeah, rate this podcast. Check out Don't Quit Your Day Job by Maxim Allen. That is a podcast that my buddy's been working very hard on, and Max and I do a podcast called Small Town Radio together. That's we're figuring out with not living in the same space anymore. But other than that, take care of yourself, especially people on the West Coast who have been stuck indoors with the fires. Yeah. All right. Well, peace.